guys, I'm back from End War and I have lots of things to test. Today we're starting with the Hooligan Riot High Crush Cage. So some background info on this. I bought this at End War, but it is now available on the Hooligan's Etsy page. This was designed almost entirely by Phil from the Open Flywheel Cage project and based on those designs. It comes with the cage itself, machine shopped, I believe CNC'd aluminum. Comes with, of course, the little screws to mount the motors. Comes with 5 of them, so 1 extra. And of course it comes with its own custom wheels. So this cage does come with its own wheels, and unlike Dr. Snicker's cages where the wheels are actually too small for you to be able to use any other wheels with it, you can use other wheels with this cage. However, I wouldn't recommend it, as you'll see from my testing. These wheels will in fact be sold separately and do fit on other Open Flywheel project cages. So some more facts about this. The wheels in this cage come in at 6.5 grams each, which is half a gram less than the other Hooligan wheels and a little over a gram less than the Containment Crew wheels. These wheels come in with an inner diameter of 34 millimeters and an outer diameter of 37.5 millimeters. So to compare that, Containment Crew wheels, which were the highest crush wheels that I had tested before this, came in at 34.4 inner diameter and 34.8 outer diameter. So these are actually, in the inner diameter, higher crush wheels than the ones that come with the cage. That being said though, these are significantly more concave than the Containment Crew ones. Other comparisons, the Hooligan wheels have an inner diameter of 33.8 and an outer diameter of 34.8. So these are still not quite as grooved as those. So for reference, a Dr. Snicker's wheel has an inner diameter of 28.2 and an outer diameter of 34.0. So the difference between the highest and the lowest point for a Dr. Snicker's wheel is about 5.8 millimeters. Whereas for these wheels, the difference is only 3.5 millimeters. So these still aren't quite as concave as Dr. Snicker's wheels, but they are more concave than any other wheels on the market right now that you would be able to buy separately for a different cage. Alright, so on to the testing. I tested this with Raytheon waffles, Chinese off-brand waffles, AccuStrike darts, and Koosh darts. Raytheons and AccuStrikes because those were the 2 that were recommended to me by Chappie, one of the guys who helped make the cage, and I tested both types of waffles because the Raytheons have a slightly harder tip than the off-brand ones. So, and it is a high crush cage, so I wanted to see if there was going to be any difference in that. So here's the chronograph videos. Go. So on to the results. The Raytheons and off-brand waffle darts were completely new. The AccuStrike darts and Koosh darts, however, were not brand new, so take those results with a grain of salt. So the highest average came from Koosh darts at 155. They also got the highest high at 170. The lowest standard deviation, though, actually came from the AccuStrike darts, which I thought was weird because they were used, and I figured Raytheon darts were fresh out of the box and have gotten great standard deviations before, would have a slightly higher one, but it was actually the AccuStrike ones. That changes, though, if you take out the couple outliers that were probably bad darts. There were a few in each category. Funnily enough, the Raytheon ones actually had the highest amount of weird outliers, even higher than the off-brand waffle darts. So that was interesting. After taking out the weird outlier darts, the lowest standard deviation were the two different waffle darts. The standard deviation was so close it really doesn't make sense to even compare it against each other. It's not going to be noticeable in your gameplay. So I did end up having to test this with Fangs and not Hellcats like I was planning to. Before I actually put the cage through the chronograph, I was using Hellcats to play around a little bit, test some accuracy, that sort of thing, just see how well they could do. And I actually managed to burn out my pair of Hellcats, which I can only attest to this cage because they haven't actually seen that much use. I haven't used them in full gameplay yet, actually. They've only been used in all the testing that you've seen for these videos. So at most, they've probably had like 200-300 darts go through them before they burned out in this cage. So I had to switch to Fangs, made by Foam Blast. Ooh. Fangs, on the other hand, worked perfectly fine, had no issue with them. They do have higher torque than Hellcats, so that might be a factor. So if you do buy this cage, I'm going to recommend that you go with something with higher torque than Hellcats, which right now is only the Fang. So in order to be able to compare this cage to other cages I've used, and other setups I've used, I decided to also test it with a couple other wheels. I tested it with Containment Crew Cyclones and also with the Artifact Metal horizontal grooved wheels. With the Containment Crew wheels, I got an average of 120, which is lower than you would get if you used Containment Crew wheels with the same setup in a lower crush cage. So that was kind of weird, not sure what's going on there. However, with the Artifact Metal wheels, I got slightly better numbers. I got an average of 138, still lower than the same setup with the wheels that come with it, but not terrible. That doesn't mean that really you should only be using the wheels that come with this cage, not anything else if you want that top tier performance, which is, like I said, the reason you're probably getting this. So finally, we've reached my thoughts and conclusions. So I'm going to quickly go over the pros and cons and then tell you if you should buy it, or at least my recommendation. So the pros are that it's made of metal and not 3D printed. So for those of you who care about the difference in quality and are not a fan of 3D printed parts, this is for you. And the wheels are really high quality. If you know the quality of the other Hooligan wheels, these are exactly on par, just as good in terms of production quality. High crush means high performance. This is probably the highest performance standalone cage in existence right now. So there's that. And it works with brushless motors. It's already milled out for the correct size brushless inrunners. So that's great. The next pro is that it was designed by Phil from the Open Flywheel project, which is great because those guys over there have had plenty of experience designing cages, and this was based straight off of one of their designs, so it's already been proven before even becoming this metal version of it. And high concavity is the future. These high concave wheels are used on DRS cages, the FDL2, high concavity wheels. That's where it's at. Alright, so a thing that is kind of a pro, kind of a con, depending on how you look at it. So if you remember a lot of reviews of the Hooligan fly-ass wheels, people complain that the shafts where they went onto the motors were way too tight. And that is consistent again with these. So some people see that as a pro because they're really tight, so they're going to go onto your motors really well, really snug. And they do widen up after you put them on the first time. However, putting them on for that first time is such a bitch. Putting them on for that first time is such a pain. So a friend of mine actually measured these precisely, and the inner diameter is 1.75 millimeters, whereas motor shafts are 2 millimeters. So actually what you're doing as you're putting these onto the motor shafts for the first time is you're actually widening the plastic by 1/4 of a millimeter. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot of effort actually to put these on the first time. Every time after that, perfectly fine, no issues, but just know that it's going to be a pain to get them on the first time. That's just a fact of using any Hooligan wheels at this point. So that's not really a pro or a con, or it's one or the other, depending on how you look at it. I'm kind of leaning towards it's kind of a con because all other flywheels that I've tested have come with the 2mm or like 1.9mm holes for the shafts, and those have worked out perfectly fine. These are exceptionally tight, and I know that they're made like that on purpose, but it can be a pain in the ass, so take that how you will. So on to the cons. So the first one, and probably the most obvious, is that it's expensive. This is a $70 cage, and the wheels are being sold separately for about 18 bucks a pair from both Hooligan and Kelly Industries. So that basically brings the cage to 52 bucks, which the only cage up in that range other than this one is the DRS cage. And there's a bunch of differences and similarities between the two. Maybe I'll make a video going over those two, going over that in the future. So I won't get into it now, but that's the only other cage in this price range. The next highest is either the Black Steel Props canted cage at, I believe, $30, and also the Worker Metal cage at around $30. And this will get better FPS performance than those two, easy. But that same performance can be gotten from a 3D printed cage and buying the same wheel separately. So really what you're paying for is the fact that it's machined aluminum as opposed to 3D printed. Now that part is great, however, this is lower quality machining work than any other aluminum cage right now. If you look at DRS cages, artifact cages, worker cages, they're all higher quality machined than this. So for example, all of these little marks on here that you can see in the close-up pictures, those aren't there on purpose. Those are actually machining marks that were not cleaned up. Take that as you will. For some people, I'm sure they enjoyed the look of this. Other people, I'm sure plenty of you will just put this in a strife and not look at it ever, because this is an internal part and there aren't a lot of ways for you to see this while your strife is closed up all the way. However, if I bought a $70 cage, I would definitely want it to be seen by the world and use a clear cover, but that's just me. But yeah, there's other like little imperfections in this. For one, there were a couple weird scraps of aluminum that I actually had to like rip off of here that were not cleaned up properly by whatever shop did this, or by the Hooligans after the shop. So other complaints, this did manage to burn out my Hellcats, like I said. I don't know if that's going to be consistent for everyone who uses this cage, or if I screwed up my Hellcat some other way before using this, or I don't know what else could have been part of it. But that's a factor, so you're kind of stuck with using Fangs or XP180s if you want to use this. And the last like major negative thing about this is that it creates so much dark dust. Like every inch of this cage on the inside is just covered in dark dust. The wheels on the inside have dark dust in it. I cleaned them out a little bit after taking it apart. There was dark dust all over the inside of my strife and all over my chronograph. And I'm sure you could see it in the chronograph videos. There's like little puffs coming out every time I fire a dart, and it littered my chronograph afterward. Especially when one of the things that the Hooligans were bragging about with their own wheels was how little it would damage darts as opposed to other wheels. And even after probably about the same usage of these wheels versus the high concavity wheels that come with the cage versus the fly-ass wheels, these still have significantly less dark dust on them than these. These captured so much dark dust, and relatively quickly too. I can't say for sure if these were made in the same process, same material. They look like they were basically made in the exact same way as those. So I'm going to attribute that to the high crush part of it. So if you're using this in any high crush cage, you're probably going to get the same result. Last but not least, two smaller complaints that probably won't matter to a lot of people, but I figure I should mention, is that it doesn't fit 9/16 inch brass. It actually would wobble a lot. Even the next step up or two would still wobble quite a lot in here, and you would need some sort of tape around it in order to make it snugly fit. That's not really that big a deal because this is pretty accurate even without any added brass, but for those of us who would want to add brass to this cage, that can be a bit of a downside. That, and the other thing is that it doesn't have any dart guide for darts entering the cage. That's kind of become a standard on open flywheel project cages, and the DRS cage has it. It's not a standard on most other cages, so I wasn't entirely expecting it to be on this one, but if you're paying $70 for a cage, really you should be expecting the best of every possible cage out there right now. And that's one of those features that should probably be on most, if not all, future cages, because it's such a useful thing to have. So those are all the pros and cons of this cage. Should you buy this cage? If you want specifically a metal high crush cage as opposed to any 3D printed ones, get it. If you're planning to use brushless wheels in a pre-made cage, then this is for you. Anyway, that's my review of the Hooligan Riot cage. Thank you guys for watching. More videos coming up soon and things. Bye.